Good evening and welcome to the Sean Newman Show on the Western Standard. Tonight we're talking Public Order Emergency Commission along with a little censorship. I'm joined tonight by a long-haul truck driver, business owner, and maybe more known as a TikTok star, Chris Barber. So first off, Chris, thanks for hopping on with me.
Good to see you, Sean. Hope things are well.
Yeah, things are good on this side. I was saying to you before we started, it was episode 236 on the podcast where you pulled over on the side of the highway and we had this, I would call, about as harmless a chat as you're going to have. I didn't think there was anything too crazy in it, considering some of the things that I'd had on and doctors and things that have been said and everything else. And it was shortly after that my entire YouTube channel got removed because of views, good sir. So that shows where we're at in the world, certainly back then. And the world has progressed since then. I don't know if it's progressed that much, though.
Well, definitely in the world of social media and the bias towards, the certain people like yourself and I out here, I can definitely tell you I've been censored a lot on social media, mostly for my own doing, I want to say, breaking community guidelines and being kind of an ass on social media, but I take full responsibility for that. But you and our conversation was nothing to be banned over.
It's funny. The world of censorship is interesting because just asking questions is dangerous these days. I don't find I don't mean dangerous in the sense of harm from anyone. I get the odd angry listener, but for the most part, it's dangerous in the sense that you just get removed from platforms or community guidelines. And when you push on the guide, well, what did I say? I said a word. There was this word ivermectin back in the day that you really got people uppity. That was a bad one. And then, of course, what we were talking about at the time was the upcoming trucker convoy, and that certainly, as everybody saw, was censored pretty hard and pulled from everywhere.
It was interesting watching Tom Marazzo. I've been with him for the week, and as he was leaving the inquiry in Ottawa, this is where I am, by the way. I'm in Ottawa right now, taking part in the inquiry for the Emergencies Act, taking part in watching every day. My testimony was just a few days ago.
November 1st, yeah.
November 1st, yeah. I think things went well. As Tom was leaving the inquiry yesterday, the media asked for a comment, and he says, I don't know if you've seen it or not. He put his hand up. He said, "You guys haven't told the truth in 3 years. I don't want to talk to you." And he kept walking.
Well, I mean, from your side, from Tom's side, from a lot of the people that are at least getting an opportunity to get up on stage, be asked questions, share their part of the story, and actually be televised, so that people can go watch it. Has that been I don't know, interesting? Is it enjoyable? I don't know what the word to put there, Chris, because I mean, for so long, you weren't really asked any questions. You were put in a box and shoved under the bed, so to speak, and kind of left there to rot.
And I think I was watching a bit of Pat King's testimony yesterday too, and he kind of, he summed it up quite well. He said a lot of our freedoms have been taken away from us because Tamara and I were charged. We're facing 6 indictable offenses right now. Tamara's conditions are quite significant. Mine are a little less. I can remain on social media. My conditions are that I'm not allowed to support a convoy remaining in Ottawa or moving anywhere else. And the convoy it's done, and it's not coming back. I still got to be careful, and I got to be really careful what we say. So having the chance to speak the other day was a chance to. It kind of it was nice to be heard. It was almost nice to be to vindicate ourselves from some of the injustice that's been said against us.
Sitting on this side, I've been saying I found it really enjoyable. The days are long, don't get me wrong. To sit and watch 9, 10, 11 hours of testimony is a lot. In saying that, when you get people up there that have certainly even been on the podcast or been, figures from out west, today as we speak, Tamara's going to be on today. I think there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are going to tune into that because, I mean, you haven't heard boo from her in how long, right?
She's excited. She's super. I spent the night with her last night, in the hotel area in their apartment with the lawyers. We cannot be seen with the lawyers, so legal counsel is always present.
Yeah. And
we've taken this opportunity to do a lot of work together that we haven't been able to talk about things that happen. She's super stoked. She's ready to go. That girl is like a spitfire, and she can't wait.
Well, how was the experience on stage? Because I'm curious, I was going to say, from my end, I kind of enjoy having 10 different lawyers try and grill you, right? Because they each have what they're trying to get out of you.
Yeah.
Was the experience the same sitting on stage, or were you like, man, by hour two, you're like, oh, this is a bit much?
And Keith told me this beforehand. He said, your 3 or 4 hours, whatever you're on the stand for, is going to go by really fast. And I found that was accurate. I was nervous as can be. I didn't sleep a wink the night before. Keith asked me in the morning as we were walking, he says, "Did you sleep?" I said, "Not a wink, Keith. I'm exhausted." And he said, "Good, because that makes for a good testimony. You need to be tired. You need to be nervous." And I definitely was. I kind of got into a routine. I felt comfortable talking to everybody who was there. Um, the inquiry lawyers, he was good. He was looking for the truth. He wasn't looking to bury anybody or mislead anyone. He was fair, awesome to deal with. Paul Champ, I mean, Paul, I think he's got a $400 million lawsuit on myself and a lot of other people right now. So his questions were pretty fair. I thought he was decent. And the government lawyers, I was expecting some hard questions from some of them, and whether they were hard or not, I kind of went past them and didn't feel like they were that hard to answer. We have the truth, John. Like, we have the absolute truth, so we have nothing to hide, nothing to be scared of, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing I was going to say. When you're not trying to concoct a story, I don't think you really have too much to worry about. I speak awfully high. You know my thoughts on you. I speak awfully highly of you because I got to interact with you before, and then while I was there for my brief time. And you've always been a guy, I think, at least from what I've seen, who conducts himself in the right way. Now, I was chuckling because you said you violated some community guidelines, and in your testimony you even said if and I'll butcher the words, Chris, but something along the lines of, I've really learned some things since before and after the convoy. Some certain things have really changed me. Has that been ushered in on social media then as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, in the testimony the other day, we played one of the videos I'd put out during the convoy, and then I apologized to Justice Rouleau for the language in it, and so that was something else that I've improved since then too. I think seeing some of the young kids that look up to me, and the knowing that some people look at me as a role model has really changed my attitude when it comes to social media. I'm still, somebody comes at me on social media, I'm still going to give it back to them. I'll just do it a little bit different now without the language. And in the heart, I'm still a troll, but it's a different kind of troll. I don't usually go after people that don't deserve it, and I've never done that. I go after the people that come after me or the people that I respect or like. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. If like I said the other day, if anybody's grown a lot, nobody has grown as much as me, morally, and it just is just a different feeling.
Well, so many eyes on you, right? Like, I mean, you think Chris Barber of January, whatever that date was, episode 236, I joke in the start of it. I'm like, I have no idea who you are. I'm like, I'm pretty sure nobody knows who you are, right? Being a little bit tongue in cheek, because obviously you had a TikTok following back then. But I mean, over the course of the next, since that date of talking, over the course of a month, you've kind of been on a rocket ship to, infamous, if nothing else, right? Like, your name has become on the same page as Tamara, and Tamara is the one who go, they issue a cross Canada warrant, come get her, yank her back, right? Like, just some wild stuff has gone on. How has being back in Ottawa been? You haven't been there since you left, I assume. To go back into that city, how has that been?
I can honestly say it's been really good. I yet to have a bad experience here. In saying that, right? The people in Ottawa I can see there's some people that are not happy, and I can understand that. I've seen positive, and I see a lot of people positive in a day, and that makes my day more positive. It's good to be back. It's good to see the city a little bit better. It's good to connect with people again and visit, get along, and I'll probably be heading home sometime on Monday, I'm sure. I got to get back to work eventually. So
I was going to ask, you come back from Ottawa, you got all these conditions put on you. None of them said you couldn't be hard working, I don't think. Have you been back to driving the long haul?
Yeah, I never stopped. I got home and I was immediately. I think I took a week off just to kind of regain a little bit composure and get a grasp on where things were. And I jumped back and read, and we've been trucking ever since. So this is the
Still
first
Big
winter.
Red? In
Big
Big Red?
Red, he's my baby. Yep.
I almost didn't know whether to introduce you, Chris, as Big Red or Chris. You know, it's funny. I don't know if I told you this story or not. But when we caught up to you guys, geez, I can't remember now. I think it was after Thunder Bay. I think it was the day we left Thunder Bay. Anyways, there was a stop at one of the stops, and I was saying to my sister at the time, I was like, man, I got to find Chris Barber. And we're walking around trying to find you. Anybody seen Chris Barber? Who? Chris Barber? Okay, yeah. Who? Yeah, okay. And finally, somebody's like, who did you say? And I'm looking for Chris Barber. And they're like, you mean Big Red? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And they're like, oh, yeah. And as soon as I said Big Red, 10 heads turned around that I'd asked. I'm like, oh, yeah, Big Red. He's standing right over there. Your truck became just as famous as you were at one point.
Well, that's my truck, right? Big Red has been known around the prairies for a number of years for the amount of stuff that I haul, the big stuff that I haul. I've been quite prominent on social media for a few years, and like I said, I'm known around Saskatchewan for being that guy, I guess, in Alberta, and then things just kind of blew up from there. But the real story behind Big Red would be for my kids, my Jonathan and Sierra, my two children, when they were just toddlers and little ones, and I'd come home with the Big Red. They would try and say, "Here comes the Big Red truck." And then the way they said it, of course, was hilarious because I couldn't pronounce it. So it was Big Truck. And anyway, Big Red was just known as Big Red after that. And then I've adopted that name because of her. So
That's how long have you had that truck then for?
I bought that truck brand new November 27th of 2003. Big Red has about 3.2 million kilometers on it. She's my baby. It's sitting at home in the shop. She's done for the winter now. I'll pull it out in the spring and drive it. So.
How many engines has that sucker gone through?
Well, we did an in-frame on the engine at 1.7 million kilometers, and then just the last number of months here, we did an engine transplant. So we took the existing engine out. It was pretty much wore right out. It was going to be about an $80,000 bill to rebuild the engine. And so what I did was I found a donor truck with an older, we call it a 6NZ single turbo. It's an older model, pre-emission yet, and we did a swap on it. So now she's got a healthier motor in it, and a little bit cheaper to rebuild.
Dad's a trucker. Right now, I got a group of truckers listening going, oh, that is. And
All
let me
right.
tell you, and then I got a bunch of people going, Sean, who cares? I'm going, at the end of the day, I'm going, why? I mean, obviously sentimental value, but why not just get a new Big Red? Why not just go find, the next latest edition of Big Red and carry on?
It's my baby. I fell in love with that truck the moment I seen it, and I'm still friends with the salesman that sold it to me 20 years ago. He's retired now, and he sends me messages every now and then. That was the worst truck that he ever sold, or the worst deal I ever sold because it never came back. I don't think I ever took the truck back for warranty or anything. Like, it has been the best truck a guy could. I love it. And I've had other trucks. I've bought trucks and run them and put drivers in them and that sort of thing. But Big Red's been my baby, and she's just my girl. It's just, you got that feeling with her when you're in her. And I have a thing and this is, my wife won't like me saying this, but I've always had a fascination with redheads, right? But my wife is not a redhead, but I always joke that Big Red is the only redhead that my wife will let me crawl into and take off with every week, and I won't get in trouble for
that. I'm going to pull you back to the commission now. I've talked about trucks. Yeah, man, that's pure gold. I might just release that as a clip. That right there is perfect.
No.
What are you hoping comes out of the commission, Chris? You've got to testify. You've got to see Tom Marazzo. Keith Wilson was yesterday. Today's Tamara. Do you got a couple more dates you've penciled on? Like, I'd really like to see these people. Obviously, Tamara will be a big one. And then, aside from people you want to see or people you want to see get on the stand, you got the Prime Minister at one point is going to be up there, which I think should be interesting. I don't know. I think that'll be good. What are you hoping comes out of it?
I'm honestly accountability and the truth is the biggest thing that's for me. You said people that I'm looking forward to. Danny Bulford is tomorrow afternoon, and Danny Bulford, as you know the history of Danny Bulford. We're talking ex-RCMP sniper on the roof that used to do the job for the Ottawa, the city of Ottawa, the parliamentary committee, the people. Danny's a powerful man, and he's a very well spoken man. I've got a lot of respect for him, and he gets to close this thing out tomorrow. So it should be a little different to listen today. I know James Bowder's on today with Canada Unity, and there's going to be some really harsh questions about that. The MOU that was produced, they're going to question on the daily to that. That's come up in all of our questions so far. We've all given our honest opinion on it, and I know that's made a few people mad. You know me, I'll say what's on my mind, and I'll stand behind it. And everything I've said for a reason. So I can't wait for the truth, honestly. And people keep saying Trudeau's coming. I yet to see that. With the amount of stories that are coming out now, how's that guy going to sit on the stand and try and defend himself? Like, there was innocent people that were beaten and hurt. It's not good.
What is maybe surprised? Like, have you watched? What were we on day 15 right now? I want to say. How much of it have you watched, and has anything surprised you?
Bridget did pretty good yesterday, I think, for her. Some of the stories in the front, like the law enforcement and Steve Bell, and there was some pretty far-fetched stories in there from some of the stuff that I could remember, but we'll see how it comes out in light. I mean, you got one side portraying completely different against the other side. And yesterday, I think Paul Champ was pretty PO'd that the citizens of Ottawa only got 2 days on the stand compared to a week for law enforcement, a week for the convoy people, and then a week for the politicians. So I think this is about the truth and the answers, and I think that's going to still come out. So we're working on it, man.
How was the atmosphere? To the listener over here watching the screen, you get to kind of get a feel of the room. It kind of feels like I don't know, maybe a stage, and then the commissioner and then just a grouping of chairs. It looks half empty half the time. Like, you can't get a feel for if it's like this somber place to go, or if it's were there protesters outside. I have no idea. Like, give a listener a little bit of an idea, Chris, of going to this building, and I don't know. I'm trying to get a feel for what actually happens from the moment you step off the plane to get in this building.
Well, so we're just at the hotels just south of the building, so we literally walk down the street and in. So as Tamara, Keith, Eva, and I and Tom are walking down the street, the paparazzi, you can see them clicking their cameras as they're coming, and they are microphones in front of your face trying to get your comment. You go through security. I've got my own pass. I can actually say that I've got like a deal here, so we'll try and do that. Look at that, Chris Barber right there. That gets me through security. Everybody is awesome. I got to tell you, security inside the building, they're amazing. They're always happy to see you. They're always talking to you, patting you on the back. You kind of walk into the room, and yeah, last week was pretty quiet. There wasn't very many people in the seats. This week, I think the last few days has been pretty full. People want to hear the story. Out front, there's one person out there with a she's got a little trailer pulling around with a "Go Home Terrorist" Hong Kong sign or something like that. And I walked out the door yesterday, and she's flipping me the two fingers, and I just waved and smiled back. It's a good thing. And I think Justice Rouleau, I've heard a lot of people that have said, like, he's handpicked by Trudeau. I think this guy's an honest guy. I believe he's a good judge, and from what I've seen of him, his conduct up there, when I got off the stand and I went to walk away, I reached a hand out. He took it happily, and he's talkative and he's smiling. You can tell he's got a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah, honestly, I think everybody pointed that out when he first got announced. Everyone's like, "Oh man, this isn't going to be good." But I haven't watched. I can't sit here and say I've watched every hour of testimony, but I've watched. I'm going to say more than the fair share of Canadians, and he's impressed me even with some of the questions he has at the end. I don't want to give the guy a complete. You're the man who's been on stage and sat by him and watched him firsthand. But honestly, everything I've seen from the live streams, he's handled the situations pretty good. Even
Yeah.
the can we say bizarre at times? Bridget's lawyer, I forget her name, but there was a couple
Oh,
of times there where I'm like, oh man, this is off the rails. Like maybe they just need to take a break, let them figure out what they want to do, and he just calm as just like water off a duck's back. Like, and I was like, as
so
the watcher,
Jane Scarf. She brought her dog into the courtroom the other day. She's not a lawyer. She's a paralegal apparently, and her sidekick, Rebecca, something like that, they've taken to task because Keith schooled them yesterday. Is what Keith did, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a paralegal, but I can tell you what. I kind of had a visit with Bridget afterwards, and I said, you know what, you got to be careful with that one because if you watch their social media feeds and the amount of trouble they cause and the amount of disruption they've caused in the system, they don't know what they're talking about, and they're talking shit about everybody, and I mean everybody. Like they're going after Keith now, and they've gone after myself in the past. And just stop. Like it was almost embarrassing. And then I heard I wasn't there that day. I actually went after my testimony. I went back and had a nap because I was so damn tired. I missed part of it. But the dog started barking in the courtroom. Like, what kind of conduct is that?
I don't have an answer for you. Once again, I was just the common viewer
Mm-hmm.
and watching it go. I've watched. Has there been times where you're like, oh man, this cop or politician or whatever, like you're like, oh my goodness. But this was on a different level. Um, for the listener who hasn't watched that, that would be November 1st, the same day Chris testified. You can go back and watch it, and it's just. And the crazy thing is, there's a ton of what Bridget says that is so meaningful, so
Yeah,
important.
absolutely. Yeah.
But the questioning that she had from her own paralegal, lawyer, whatever, counsel, was painful. Was very painful. And I think anytime that happens, it does probably more harm than anything because up to that point, I think you could pick out um, a couple of citizens of Ottawa that were painful, and you could pick out maybe the odd police that was a little bit painful, but not in the sense of like unorganized and not asking questions that were relevant and bogging it down. It was more of like, wow, this testimony is something else. You know, um, you're going to be back home here very soon, a few days. You're going to leave Ottawa. You're going to head home. What's next for Chris? Is there's in the back, in the peer view, you mentioned being sued by Paul Champ and not just yourself, but others. You got work coming back up, I'm sure, and it'll be pedal to the metal. But what's next for Chris in regards to all this? Is there much? Are you paying attention to much? Do you got to be back out in Ottawa at any point in time? What's next for Chris?
Well, Tamara and I will be charged. We are charged together. Our court date is set for September 5th, 2023. We're going to be, we'll be tried together, and it'll be about a 3-week trial from what they say. So we've got trial prep for that coming up. We're going to get ready for that. We've got what do they call it now? A charter rights violation that we petitioned for my cell phone evidence being released to the Crowns and to the media and to the general public. There was about 4,200 pages that was dumped out for the public from my personal conversations with, a lot of people, let's say, a lot of people that shouldn't have been on there. And it was a privacy breach, of course, in my opinion. So we've got that coming up in February, March, something like that. I got to get back to work. I got to help Jonathan. He's trucking it home, running the business. I told him I'd help him on the icy roads for his first year. I've got a pilot truck that I can run. I got paperwork I can do for the winter until I fire it up in the spring. Most excitingly, I'm going to go to Calgary for November 19th of November. Jamie Soleil and Theo Fleury. It was a couple months ago. You and I were in Calgary for the grand opening for Canadians for Truth with Joseph Burgo. I get to be on that show on 19th for Jamie and Theo's Fire and Ice episode. So I'm excited. It's going to be kind of cool. Tickets are on sale now. Of I think it's called Eventbrite, or through CanadiansForTruth.com, I believe.
Yeah, I was saying to you beforehand. Anytime you get on stage, if I can make it there, not to sound like a fanboy, folks, but and just enjoy the conversation because you've seen, you know, yourself and Tamara and Tom, and I mean, you can extend it to Bridget and Dan Bulford. I mean, Daniel. I almost forgot that he's going to testify. How sad is that? I'm supposed to be having him back on here after he's done as well because Dan has been on the podcast multiple times, and once again, I met him for the first time in Ottawa. And what a beautiful family, and man, he is. And he'll be very interesting because he has an interesting perspective. But anytime you guys get on the stage, you're one of very few people that have such an insight into one of the biggest events in Canadian history. I mean, it's sure to be a fantastic listen. I would think. I mean, you're gonna stick Theo Fleury and Jamie Slade. I laugh because I was on stage with those two, and I can't see that not being entertaining, if nothing else.
Well, it's kind of funny. I was talking to Theo yesterday. I did his Patriot Warrior show and just gave him a hand with that. And he said, I can't wait for it, buddy. It'll be nice once I get past the nervousness of being on the stage and knowing that there's like 200 people watching in the audience. And he said, well, Jamie's going to be the one that's easy on you. I'm the asshole. Remember that.
And hey, listen, I used to be nervous of the stage, and now I was saying this the other day. It feels almost like a little bit of a second home. You know, this weekend coming up, I'm on the stage with Quick Dick McDick and 222 Minutes. We got a little bit of SMP Presents, a comedy show, if you will. I think it'll be followed by a live podcast, right? So I'm gonna let Quick Dick and 222 Minutes do their thing, and then we get up and we do a live podcast at the end, which should be a ton of fun. But I remember being terrified of the stage, and then I don't know, something clicked in my head maybe where I just I decided it was the next rink, you know, like I played hockey all my life. Oh, it's just the next. Here's the ice sheet. Now I get to walk around it instead of, you know, whatever. To me, just picture picture that redhead you're running away with every weekend and you'll be fine, you know? Like you get in the comfy chair and you sit back and away you go. I think you'll be a natural. Your testimony was fantastic.
Yeah, and I was really happy the way that turned out. So I'm hoping it was. I hope we got the right light across. I seen somebody criticizing me the other day on TikTok, and I went, "Dude, like you weren't there." But everybody's got an opinion, right? There's a saying about that. I won't say it because there's some bad words in this thing. But
well, and the other thing is, Chris, you're not. It's not like you haven't had your moments. You even meant, you know, we talked about it right early on about some things you've released on social media that you're kind of like, yeah, that was inappropriate, or you know, I'm just growing. And one of the tough things about society right now is allowing, you know, indiscretions from the past, right? Like, yeah, like that was like 5 years ago. I hope I've grown since then, or you know, et cetera, et cetera. It's just tough because. Most people can go back on anyone at this point. I'm sure if somebody wants to dig something up on the podcast, there's almost 400 of them now. There will be something stupid I said. I guarantee it. And if they want to pull that out of context or just pull it out and say this is what he thinks instead of going to you and finding out what you actually think, it's easy to really take somebody and put them in a certain light and expose that to the world when instead of just going out and finding out how they actually think as of today. Jeremy McKenzie is going to be an interesting guy on the stage because he is a guy that has a lot of things in his closet, so to speak, because he's a man who does a 3-hour show and likes to drink and likes to say things that make us all a little uneasy at times.
I'll be the first to admit I've been one of the worst out there, probably just as maybe even worse than Jeremy. I don't know, but I can tell you, I told this to my son a couple of weeks ago. I said, you know what, bud? There's one thing I've learned as an adult now. I guess maybe going through this experience is be careful what you post on social media. I mean, honestly, think before you post because you know. And in the past, anybody that knows me knows my personality, knows what I used to do, what I do. It's a dark humor, and it's a side that you don't necessarily need to take part in anymore. I realize that now, but I told Jonathan, I'm like, It'll come back and bite you in the ass someday, regardless of how innocent you think it is at the time. And that's true, 100% true. And he's not very vocal on social media anyway, so that's a bonus. Neither one of my children are. They talk and they do stuff on social media, but they don't post controversial things like their dad did. So.
How has how has I? That's maybe one of the things I should have brought up is how has family life been? I know your son went with you. How has this affected the family? I don't know if you're willing to talk about it, Chris, but I assume this has been for you. It's been obviously a whirlwind. How hard has it been, or easy, whichever way it goes, for your family, for your wife, for your kids?
Well, obviously, my family history, I'm a divorced guy. I remarried my beautiful wife, Rael. With her, she brought two children into the mix. And then, of course, I brought my two children into the mix. So we're a mixed family. I've got a beautiful relationship with my ex-wife. We co-parent our children. Absolutely amazing. I've always been something I've always been proud of. My 17-year-old daughter was almost felt lonely. She lives with her mother and stuff current when I'm home on the weekends or home whenever. She's usually out at the farm, but now she's 17. She's got a job. She goes to youth a couple times a week, and she's on Sunday. She's busy with church and her family there. I don't see her as much as I used to. I don't think, and it's just because she's becoming that teenager, the busy teenager. So a little bit, I got to put a little more effort into it now. I got to send her the messages. I got to spend. She was pretty upset knowing that I was coming to Ottawa. She was thinking, last time it wasn't such a good experience. So I took her out and spent the night with her and had a good time. My son, he's got his own truck now and he's trucking with me. I couldn't be prouder of that kid. He's really stepped up and he's really a smart, intelligent kid. My wife would like to go back to the days of old when it was just her and I. I know that. It's definitely hard to have that balance now because you're pulled in 15 different directions, and she's probably the one that takes it hits the most, I say. So I try and give her those nights. Before I flew out here, we went to Regina. We went out for supper at Red Lobster in Regina, and on the way to the bathroom, somebody recognized me. So then he was at the table a couple times telling us how, thanks, and this and that. And it's awesome to see that. He bought us supper, and my wife was like, we can't get a minute. You know that, right? She says it with a smile on her face, and there's a hint of sincerity there, too. We took her out for a movie and popcorn and settled into the hotel that night. And I give her those nights. And at home, during the summertime, we spend a lot of time on our side-by-side out ripping through the river hills, having a gale time. And, a lot of times where we go, there's no cell service, so that makes her even happier. So it's a balance, I say, and it's just trying to find that balance to fit everybody's needs. And it's tricky. I'll be the first to admit that.
Hmm. Well, from one Canadian to another, I certainly do appreciate you leading the way. There's very few things I try and throw too much of a bias behind because I try to stay. I always say I got my biases. I mean I'm not perfect, but when it came to this cause, to what the group of you did, I think I said it best on the last podcast when it's like, why had none of us thought about this? This makes perfect sense. My father grew up trucking, and he had always said, and I'll say it again, you want to shut down a country, piss off the truckers. Well, I think that was done in spades, and you saw what happens. And I mean, from one Canadian to another, Chris, and I hope one day, maybe on the 19th of November, I'll get to Calgary and I'll get to see you again. But do appreciate you hopping on the show, and do appreciate what you've stood for. And I'll be watching, as the commission goes on, because we still got weeks to go. I'll be continuing to keep up on that. But you brought up a good point. With your court cases and that coming in 2023, I think there will be a lot of Canadians paying close attention to that, because I think I would love nothing more than to have you be able to speak freely again and not worry about conditions and different things that can get you in a real pickle.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been extremely careful. I've done everything in my power to watch what happens. I'm hoping. Like I said, it's something that I don't sleep well with at night, knowing that I have that over my head. But coming from my past, I've as much of an ass as I've been on social media, I've never been arrested before. I've never been in the back of a police car. I've never been in a jail cell before. So a lot of things have happened in the last year that have changed the dynamics of me quite a bit, I'd have to say. But it is what it is, and we're here for the long haul. So.
Right on. Well, Chris, I'll let you get back to your morning. Make sure that make sure you get back to the testimony that's coming up here very shortly. But I appreciate you giving me some time this morning making this work. When you're back out in Saskatchewan, make sure to shoot me a line, because I'd love to take you for a beverage if you and Big Red are cruising through the border city.
If I ever get there, buddy, I will definitely call you. I just see Eva text me here now saying, "Hey, where are you? We're walking over to the courthouse." So it's an infamous walk we do each morning where we get to come down the street with Tamara and I and Eva and Keith. So
awesome.
Thanks for having me on today, Sean. It was much appreciated. It's good to see you.
You bet. Good to see you as well. Thanks, Chris.
Take care, man. Be safe, guys.
The current Lethbridge feed grain prices are as follows. Cash barley's at $4.55, feed wheat's at $4.74, and corn's holding at $4.77 per metric ton. In the milling wheat markets, December Minneapolis futures lost 2 3/4 cents at $9.46, with local hard red spring bids for December movement at $12.25 per bushel. In the oil seeds, nearby canola futures increased $2.10 at $8.96.90 per ton, with delivered values for December trading at $20.11 per bushel. In the pulse markets, nearby red lentils are remaining at 34 cents, and yellow peas are trading at $13 per bushel. In the cattle markets, December live cattle gained 40 cents at $151.80 per 100 weight. For more information on grain marketing, call me at 403-394-1711. I'm Sean Smith at Marketplace Commodities, accurate real-time marketing information and pricing options.
Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Without the CSSA, our gun rights would have been taken long ago. These guys are on the front lines helping to draft smart and intelligent firearms regulations and legislation in Canada, and more importantly, educating the public about how we keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. You become a member, it's absolutely worth every penny. You can become a Western Standard member for just $10 a month or $99 a year.